Hello, everybody. Welcome one more time to the Tournament Center here at Pro Tour Cons of Tarkir in Honolulu, Hawaii. I'm here with Greg Orange.
Hello.
Greg, coming into this tournament, we were having a debate called spell or counterspell. The idea, are people going to be playing, questions, or are people going to be playing answers? And a lot of people felt like control might not exist for this format.
Right.
But you came here packing a control deck. What were you thinking about as you prepared for this tournament?
Well, the thing is, I basically always play control, so really, there wasn't a lot of thought to put it. It was like, I was worried that it was dead too, but I was just going to try to build it the best I could, because that's basically what I like to play.
Okay,
so.
what did you have to do? Because we're going to see your deck in a few seconds. We're going to go through it, but this is there's not a lot of counter spells in your deck.
Yeah.
You have to go to a very different kind of spell configuration. What was your thinking on this?
Well, I wanted to play like Thoughtseize, and I wanted to play like Hero's Downfall, and like the mana base for like a blue Esper deck wasn't like that great, so I didn't really have room in like the mana base to like run dissolves. Although I wanted to, it's just too hard to get the double blue on like turn 3.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, you know what? Let's take a look at what you put in here. And you started, really, it looks like, with a couple planeswalkers.
Yeah.
Elspeth Sun's Champion, a staple. And then a card that maybe people have fallen asleep on a little bit as a control tool, Ashiok Nightmare Weaver. Tell me about this card.
Ashiok, well, there's a lot of like mid-rangey green decks, and Ashiok is really good against those decks because a lot of time, if you play it early before your opponent has a threat into play, either they have to spend their turn answering it, or they're can be far behind. Sometimes Ashiok isn't that good because if they already have something going on, then it just doesn't really do anything. But
I look at people playing Magic, and a lot of times on turn 3, their land is coming into play tapped.
Yeah.
If you're able to play an Ashiok, that seems like it's going to be great for you against a deck with Mantis Riders or burn spells or something like that, where you're able to stick this, plus it, and then maybe steal their own creatures and start using them against them.
Yeah, or sometimes you can even Thoughtseize into Ashiok, so they don't have anything, and then you can play it afterwards.
Are these your 2 primary win conditions in the deck?
They're the only win conditions, not the primary ones. They're dead, then I'm dead.
They are the 1st through 5th win conditions in the deck. Yeah. All right, so let's take a look at how we get there. In place of where you would normally see Counterspell, Mana Leak, Remand, it's actually more of a package of black removal spells.
Yeah.
Talk about Utter End and Murderous Cut, the 2 new cards from Cons of Tarkir.
Well, I wanted to try out Utter End because I wanted to be able to answer, because I wasn't quite sure what people are going to be playing or what I'm going to see. So it can answer a god, or it can answer a planeswalker or a creature. So it just has a lot of versatility. It's kind of expensive, so you don't want a lot to.
So you actually have an answer to a Keranos, for example.
Yeah. Otherwise, there just wouldn't be an answer to Keranos. So.
Murderous Cut, just 1 copy in the main deck, but how has that card been for you?
Well, I was already playing Dig Through Time, and I found that there was still enough extra cards where I could squeeze in another one. I needed another early removal spell to play in turn 3 maybe, and I didn't want another Bile Blight because there's too many things I thought that avoided Bile Blight or had 4 toughness or whatnot. So.
Okay. And Hero's Downfall, pretty self-explanatory at this point. It's been a staple of any deck with swamps now for as long as it's been around. Let's take a look at the next set of cards. You mentioned Thoughtseize.
Yeah.
You're using this to set up your Ashiok, using this to disrupt. They're like, keep. You're like, excellent, I have a Thoughtseize. And tell me about Disdainful Stroke, the 1 counterspell in your deck.
Yeah, well, I was thinking, at first I wanted to play Dissolve, but there wasn't enough blue. And so I was thinking there'd be a lot of more mid-rangey decks, some slower decks. I thought that the main cards I want to counter are the more expensive ones anyway. So a lot of the time Ashiok, Disdainful Stroke has been pretty good. I'll have 2 mana open and counter a Planeswalker or something, Storm Breath Dragon or
just about anything.
Whatever.
Yeah, it's like a negate for everything.
Yeah.
Costs more than 4. So now you're digging. You're digging for those removal spells. You're digging for your planeswalkers. You're trying to buy turns. This is kind of your turn. Find what I'm looking for. Nyx Fleece Ram 3 in the main deck. This is not a card we often see in the main deck.
Yeah, it's kind of a weird choice. But the problem, there's no other way to gain any life with the deck, and there's no counter spells. So if you don't have if they're playing burn in their deck, a lot of times you'll just die to their burn deck, their burn spells, because they'll just top deck a few, and then you'll just be dead after a few turns.
Sure.
So if you have a sheep in play, then that sort of prevents that from happening. Also, it can be like an answer to a creature, and maybe later you play like a wrath, and like you killed multiple creatures, but you lost the sheep, but it already did its job at that point anyway.
And with 3 colors, you can't really play like the Radiant Fountain we've seen in some of the blue-black control decks.
Yeah.
Okay. Dig Through Time and Divination, obviously, just finding you, end hostilities.
Yeah.
How has this card been for you? Has it lived? How has it worked as a generic or substitute for Supreme Verdict?
Oh, well, it's no Supreme Verdict. That's true, but like it's nice that you can dig for it, so you don't quite need like the full playset of end hostilities. But when it's good, it's good. Like, it's just some slower decks. So a lot of times you don't necessarily need it on turn 4, although it would be nice. But
are you finding that the aggro decks are maybe a turn or 2 slower, as well as the control decks being a turn or 2 slower?
Well, I just wasn't expecting a lot of aggro decks, because I thought like the mid-range decks, the Siege Rhino decks, would be really good against those, and there probably wouldn't be a whole lot. But
okay, so let's take a look at how you made this all work in the mana base. We've got 3 different temples and a Scoured Barrens, sort of bridging your mana together, looking for all these different sources of white. Let's take a look at the next group. Polluted Delta and Flooded Strand, getting cards into your yard.
Yeah, for Dig Through Time.
Yeah, and then, but also finding the right mix of islands, plains, and then if we look at the next set of cards, you also have some basic swamps, and of course the Urborg, sort of the fixer.
Yeah.
Any problems with Urborg? Have you played Urborg and given your opponent swamps and had anything go horribly awry?
I don't think I've done it today, but
beware the empty the pits. We've heard stories about the Urborg turning on someone's empty the pits. But so what are your thoughts about this deck? How are you feeling with it? As you come towards the end of 2 days of playing, against the toughest Magic players on Earth.
Right.
How do you feel? You're in a good position. You top 25 your last Pro Tour. To qualify for this Pro Tour, you're in a position for another top 25 or better finish again this weekend. How do you feel this deck has served you?
It served me really well. Like I played against some green ramp decks, and it's pretty good against those decks. It's got some Faded Retributions in the sideboard.
Sure, here we take a look. Last Breath, Nyx Fleece Ram, Erase, Faded Retribution, Elspeth.
Yeah, so it was pretty good against the green ramp decks, and it's also pretty good against the Mantis Rider decks, I think, also.
Okay, let's take a look at the last set of cards in the sideboard. We see Drenosaur, we see 2 more Ashjack Nightmare Weaver, so that's got to be for the control matchup?
Yeah, and I just felt like I needed extra win conditions in the sideboard, and that was really the only, that's what I thought one of the best ones to play. So
you can go up to like 8 Planeswalkers if you need to, and also go up to 6 counterspells.
Yeah.
Okay, what's your best matchup on the weekend? You said maybe the Jeskai deck?
Maybe like a green ramp deck.
Okay, and what's your worst matchup? What are you really dreading?
The blue-black deck.
The blue-black control deck?
It's just like a more controlling version of my deck. It has dissolves and counter magic and more hand disruption, so like there's not a lot that I can really do about that.
Okay, interesting. I'm going to be curious to see how the ballad of the control deck continues to play out as we move into Grand Prix LA over the coming weeks. Greg Orange, thank you very much. You have one more match of Magic to go play. Signing off for Greg Orange is Brian David Marshall from the Tournament Center.